All right, and I will share my entire screen. Infinite loop, I love it. Okay, so I'm going to my folders, and I'm going to start by doing what I did the other times. Let's see. Last thing I did was, let's see. Oh, let's see. We actually did, so I forgot that we did a demo on Friday, didn't we? So that's okay. I'll be able to use this same folder to do the lab portion that you guys did. And then I'll duplicate this into Unit 5 when we're doing the new stuff on array functions. So I think that I asked you, if I'm not mistaken, to create a new file called statements.js, I believe. And then other than that, I don't think so far we've built the original HTML document. I don't think we've made any changes to it other than, of course, this time you had to add another script source to call in the new JavaScript file. So let me go ahead and open up code here. And this time I will open a folder. Might as well. Okay. And here is our index.js. And this is what I did. I know that some of you have been encountering I'm always getting an error in the console saying that it's a 504 or whatever. It cannot find this file, 404. And it just comment it out if it's bothering you, which it bothers me after a while. So just go ahead and comment it out or delete it. I mean, I kept we've been supposed to be doing CSS since day one. Day one, I was going to do a little bit of a review on CSS, and we still haven't got to it. But don't worry, because we will. When we do the project, we're going to need to. So it's going to come. So far, we've just had the JS index.js here. So I will now make another one. / statements.js. And this is where you do conditional statements and loops, right? Those were the only thing that I think you guys did on Friday. And then I will JS and make a new folder here and call it statements.js. And here we are. And you guys know me. I like to put just a little comment up at the top before I get started on anything. And then I will take, well, I guess I could do this live view here. I tend to forget about that. Which I guess will put me into Edge, but I'm sure that's okay. Well, no, you know what? I'm going to do it in Chrome. I just don't trust Edge yet. Not for a demo. And I've opened up the console with a Control-Shift-I. And let's see. So this was, yeah, that's right. This is from Friday. So that's cool. Failed to load resource. The server responded with 404 and favicon. Don't worry about that. It's easy enough to make a favicon.ico image file and just throw it in your root directory, and then that message will go away. But I'm kind of surprised it's even showing up at all, and it's not letting me close it either. Refresh it. Okay, so I refresh it and the error goes away. It's really weird. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to statements.js, and I'm going to read off of the instructions on my other screen here. So this is, oh wait, that's the week 1 Friday lab. I mean, there's the week 2 Friday lab. Good. Okay, so the first part of it is to do conditionals, and then there are loops after that. So the conditionals are doing an if-else, And then maybe I'll go ahead and make these as comments. And then ternary operator statement, and then loops after that. So some of you are commenting your code really nicely, and I really appreciate that. And I'm considering giving extra credit for doing good commenting. Some of it has been really nice and tidy, which makes it a lot easier for me to read. So something to consider. Okay, so we created a new JavaScript file named statements.js. That's the first thing to do. Save it to the JS subfolder and source it into your HTML page as you did before. And the easiest way to test our page is simply to declare a variable. This wasn't in the instructions, but I don't know, let howdy equal howdy, and then go to the browser and refresh and see if you can get that variable to spit out a value. Oh, you know what? I had it as a function before, so let howdy do. Let's try that again. Howdy do. And there it is. Okay, it's working. Now, there's always the possibility of what are called collisions, where I've got like too many things coming into the HTML page all at once. And obviously that's already happening here because we've already spat a bunch of stuff out to the page here from the demo on Friday. So I don't know if it's going to matter or not, but maybe just for fun, I'll go ahead and just comment this out. And refresh. That shouldn't cause any problems. Howdy do is still working. Okay, and then we'll just work in JS statements.js. Probably doesn't make any difference, like I was saying. Okay, so the if-else conditional. Write a script that prompts the user for their age and stores it in a variable named input. And then I tell you how to do that. And so this is it. If you go prompt, it's like an alert, right? If I do alert howdy do, then this pops up and just says, hi there. I can hardly think of any situation where you would actually want to use an alert anywhere. And the reason why is because it's bad for user experience. It's bad for accessibility. It creates a situation where in order to get anything else to happen on this page as a user, I have to click on this thing to make it go away. And that's not something that you want to do to your users. So, but anyway, prompt is like that, but it asks for input from the user. And in this case, let's just go say, I don't know, start off with howdy do, just to test it out here. Howdy, and then it says we have to type something in. Once again, the user, we're forcing the user to interact with this thing to make it go away. And then it spits that result back to the console. So that's what a prompt is. So that's what we're going to do in here. We start off with saying, let's see, variable named input, right? So let input equal prompt. Now remember that the prompt returns a value here. Whatever the user inputs, it returns that value, and this is the value. This is what I just clobbed in there just a moment ago. So once the user has entered some information, that information is going to be stored in the input variable here. So I say as an example, ask the user a question, but in this case we're asking a specific question. Ask the user for their age. So what is your age, or how old are you? I guess is the way most people would write it. And you might see something like this, I don't know, on like a wine vending website where the user has to say that they are 21 years old in order to be able to grant access to the website, to the content, and so on. Of course, anybody can say they are, but they have to ask anybody. Anyway, so this is the first part. How old are you? And then I can type in anything I want, including not a number. And then if I go over here and type in input, then it gives me the value that just got entered. So that's what there's the input, but then we have to do a conditional. So we have to say, okay, so the user is not allowed to do what I just did. They can't just type in a random string of gibberish. They have to input something that's actually a number, right? So if the user inputs something, enters something other than a number, prompt again. Value is not a number. Please try again. Now the second prompt won't do anything. We need to do a loop in order to make that to happen. But at least one time, we will be able to force them, not force them to do anything, but force them to try again at least. So this is going to be our condition. And I tell you how to do it here in the instructions again. There's the is non. So we talked about the nan, N-A-N, not a number. And then there's an operator called is nan, so is not a number. So let's say let's go ahead and try it here. So is not a number and 42. And that is false because 42 is a number. But is, so it's like a double negative, right? Is not a number. Hello, howdy. That is true because howdy is not a number. That's what is nan does. So here's our condition. If, and I told you guys before that sometimes I like to do like the entire structure. I know it's going to be an if-else statement, so there's nothing wrong with going ahead and typing in the logic of it first, and then put in the condition. And if the condition is non, or is not a number, input. So if the value captured here from the prompt is not a number, then do this, or else do this. And what this is going to do is it's going to prompt again. And prompt that's not a number. Please try again, or something like that. I better type slower here. Now here's a case where I need to, if I'm using single quotes and I've got an apostrophe in the middle of it, then I have to use the escape sequence, right? That was something that we learned back in week 1, so that's important to remember. You do not need to do that if you use double quotes around here instead of single quotes. Or, likewise, you could use template literal like the backticks in order to make a template literal string. So there was only one case, like the Friday week 1 lab, I instructed you guys specifically to use single quotes because I wanted to see you use that escape sequence. So here it is again, putting the backslash in front of that apostrophe in order to escape it so that the interpreter knows that that is not the end of the string. We'll ignore that and go on to here. So prompt, that's not a number, please try again. That's what happens if the user types in something other than a number. And then if they do type in a number, then that goes into the else block here. And then we'll do the console.log input. Or no, wait, I asked for a sentence, right? You are 12 years old, 42 years old, whatever. And it said you can use a template literal for this, so that's what I'm going to use. So that's the backticks here. You are. And then for the input value, if you want to interpolate a value into a template literal string, then this is the way you do it. You do the $ and then the 2 curly braces, and then type in the value that's going to get interpolated here. It's going to get rendered here or returned. So something like this. So there's our condition for part 1. Let me go ahead and try it here. So I'm going to refresh, how old are you? And I type in a bunch of gibberish because I don't really want to answer. That's not a number, please try again. And then I type in, I think 42 is a good number. And, let's see, something's not happening here. It's not actually spitting it out to the console, which surprises me. If is non-input, let me see here. Oh, of course, because it doesn't catch it the second time. Okay. So it's not doing it because it's going back to this prompt and saying that's not a number, please try again. But then after that, there's nothing that tells it to go on to the else part of the statement, right? After I type in the number the second time around, it just goes to the end of the conditional and keeps going there. So that's like the That's the weakness of just doing it this way without including it in a loop. So we'll do that a couple of steps from now. But let me go back over here and just do how we'll do it. And this time I'll put in 42 the first time, and there it goes, and it spits out there. So we're good to go. Okay, before we get to the loop part, we have to take this if-else statement and convert it to a ternary operator statement. So I'll do that down here. And we really want to comment this out so that it's not prompting multiple times or recording different values for input that we don't want it to. Comment that out and then rewrite it here as a conditional, or sorry, as a ternary. So the ternary itself, I'll do the condition here, and then hang on just a second. Yeah, the ternary is going to exist within a console.log, even though the first part, like the first block here, doesn't actually log something to the console. Let's try it that way at least. Hopefully I'll be able to do it that way. I like it if I can take like some part of it, like console.log, and take it out of the ternary and contain that within, contain the ternary within it. So I'll do console.log here, and I'm going to split that up across a couple of lines. And up here we will do our condition is none. By the way, it has to be spelled just like this. With two capital N's, or else it won't work. JavaScript identifiers are case sensitive. Input. And then, usually you do a ternary operator all on one line, but this is going to be a little bit longer, so that's why I'm splitting it up on multiple lines like this. So I'm going to start with the question mark, and then say, so if input is not a number, input equals prompt. And I guess I don't need to write all this stuff again. I can just copy it here. That's not a number. Please try again. So that is the if part of the statement. The if block goes in here. And then after the colon, you get the else block. And else console.log, you are input years old. So what I'm hoping for here is that this accomplishes the same thing as this. This is done in a classic if-else condition, and this one is done in the ternary operator statement. So let's try it here. Hopefully it'll work out the same way. So I go over here, how old are you? And if I type in my number, then it spits out. Very good. I'm not concerned about the undefined here. So the undefined, line 19, yeah, this is the thing, because I'm telling it to log something to the console, but then I'm not giving it a value. So it is doing it. Well, no, wait, it's not doing that. No, I guess I'm confused. It's just jumping right to the second one here. So I was thinking of something that wasn't. So anyway, that doesn't matter. You are 42 years old. It's doing the right thing. If I refresh it and type in something other than a number, then it gives me this portion of it. So I think that's successful. It doesn't do exactly the same thing because it does return that undefined value somewhere in here. But other than that, it's doing the correct logic. It's getting the same result. So that's the ternary operator statement. And then once again, we're going to wind up commenting that out, because on the next portion, doing loops, the first portion of it is doing a while loop in order to get this to continue. Right now, the weakness that we talked about is that if I capriciously type in something other than a number, and it says, that's not a number, please try again, and then I keep doing it, I break it, right? Like it manages to dump out without actually forcing me to enter, yes, I'm over 21 years old, I can come visit your website. So what we have to do is we have to put this into a loop, and we'll have to say, like, as long as input is not a number. As long as that remains true, then continue to prompt, that's not a number, please try again. And then only when it evaluates to false will it then go out to, okay, fine, you are such and such years old. So here's what that looks like. I'm going to comment out this guy again. And I think I gave instructions to comment all these out as you went along. Yeah, I did. Okay, so loops here, and the above prompt only works once if the user doesn't enter a correct value. The second time, the script fails to keep asking. Under getting loopy, number 1, comment out the ternary operator. Write a while loop that keeps the please try again prompt looping until the user finally agrees to enter a correct value, no matter how many attempts that takes. So the while loop, you may recall from Friday, and the do while loop, you have to be very careful of those, because if you forget to put in a condition that will eventually evaluate to true or false, whatever you're looking for, then you can get yourself into an infinite loop very easily, and that can crash the browser very easily or freeze it up. So this is going to be a while loop, and a while loop looks like this. While, and then there's the condition in here, and then the code block goes in here. So the condition is the same. While input is not a number, and that is non-input. Let's see, input equals so our original input equals this prompt, and then we're redefining it in here, so we don't need to use a let or var or anything like that. So input equals, and then here's that prompt that's asking them for a different kind of value to be entered. Now, because we know that that's going to keep asking for the user input until they input a number, we actually can get away with a simpler logic structure. We don't need to do a whole conditional or even a ternary operator. We can just keep looping through this, and then once they enter the correct kind of value, then just go down and log it to the console. And here we'll do console.log, and then you are input years old. So it's kind of separating it out, right? It's taking this the part that's in the if statement, the if block here, or the first part of the ternary, and just looping through it over and over again until we get the right answer, and then this is like outside of that logic structure altogether. So in a way, this is an infinite loop. Like if the user never enters in a number, then this will loop continuously. So let's try it. I'm going to save here and go over here to the browser. How old are you? And I will type in some nonsense, and it should keep giving me trouble about it. No matter what I try to do, eventually I'm going to have to type in a number, and then it will dump me out of the loop and log that value to the console. So this is actually the correct way to do it. So this is one way to get a simple conditional, and then this is a different way of writing that conditional. And this one gets rid of the conditional and instead puts the condition into a loop that'll keep asking for the value over and over again. I mean, I guess that's probably not actually the way that like a wine clearinghouse website would do it. They would, if someone did fail to put in a number, they would just be dumped out to a different home page that didn't have any, sensitive content on it, probably. But this would be another way to do it. Okay, let's see. Is that it? No, of course not. Write a for of loop that logs each li element to the console. So how to retrieve the li elements? Check the document provided, walking the DOM.pdf. So I gave that to you. I wrote that up and gave it to you because we're going to be using it some more. This is like the first time, at least since the original HTML class, that you've had to retrieve elements from a web page. But there's other stuff on there that we will be using over the next couple of weeks. So keep that PDF on hand and ready to go for other labs and other exercises and so on. But the way that you retrieve them, the trouble with this is like every time you save and refresh, you're going to get that prompt all over again. So if you wanted to, like, I wouldn't have any problem if you like commented out this whole section of it too, just so you didn't have to keep typing something into the prompt every time you refresh the page to try out the last portion. I didn't tell you to do this, but it would be fine if you did. I gotta save here. Oh, you know what? I have to comment this out too, of course. I was forgetting. This is the original input. So now I've written a whole bunch of code that I've commented all of out. Let's see, let's get rid of that, and then refresh, and then we won't have to deal with it anymore. Okay, so here's how you get it. These are the li elements. And the way that you would retrieve all of those using vanilla JavaScript is document.querySelectorAll. So let's run through a few of these as long as we're looking at this. So document, let's go ahead and select for certain elements here. This is, it's the document object model, right? So it is basically an object-oriented thing. And it's set up in a certain way that all browsers treat the same way. So let's start off with document, right? So the document is the whole dealio. This is the whole document model, including the doc type declaration, all of the stuff that's inside the head, all of the stuff that's inside the body, the root element, all the attributes, everything. That's the document. The document, remember, it has two children, and we can get to those by document.head and document.body. So there's that one, and then document.body. And there is the body element. Document.head you don't wind up using very often because you usually don't need to modify that at all. But this one you wind up using quite a bit. So there's also other properties and methods that you can attach to the document or to the body of the document. So let's say I wanted to select for all the elements on the page. Well, there is the query selector all that we were talking about. So got document.query selector all, and then inside the parentheses here, I can, in quotes, use any CSS selector. So you guys are familiar with CSS, even though we haven't reviewed it yet, I know. But back in the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript class, the Web Technologies class, we did spend a couple of weeks doing CSS in addition to HTML and so on. And you guys got used to some of the selectors that you could use in there. So use exactly the same selectors in document.querySelectorAll in order to select for the same elements. So in CSS, you have what's sometimes called the splat selector or the universal selector, which is just the asterisk. That'll select everything. And there they are. So it gives me a big node list, including the HTML element, head, meta, title, body, header, all the stuff inside body and header and head. That gets everything. If I do document.querySelector without the all, you got to be careful of the intercaps here, right? Remember that JavaScript is camel cased, and so almost any time you have two words smashed together in a method or property name or an identifier of some sort, then it's going to be camel cased like this, where every word is capitalized except the first one. So document.querySelector, and then I'll put the same splat selector in here, and it only returns one element. Now in this case it's not a whole lot different because the HTML element is the first element and it contains everything, right? But that's what happens. Instead of returning a node list with all of the elements within that selector, it returns the first instance of that selector that it can find on the page. So maybe I should try it with H2s instead because I know I've got several of those. So let's try document.querySelector H2. And notice, by the way, when I type this in, it highlighted it for me on the page over here. But if I hit enter, it returns the first H2, which is the description one. And then if I do the same thing, but do document query selector all, then it returns me the node list with 3 H2s because that's how many are on the page. So that's the difference between query selector and query selector all. Now, I won't go into the other ones that I've got on the page, but I've included a number of other ones that might be useful. including, how to find the parent element, how to find the next sibling element, the previous sibling element, how to find the children of an element, so on and so forth. But for right now, we'll just go on and go back to the lab exercise. So I was asking about the LIs. So if we did a document.query selector and type in LI, it's going to grab the first LI element in this list. And if I do the same thing, but do a document.query selector all, then it'll grab all of those as a list, and I can then loop through those in various ways, which is what I asked you to do with the for of loop. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to pop back over here, and the for of loop looks like this. And as far as the structure of it goes, it looks exactly like the classic for loop, right? The for let I equals 0, and then I is less than some length, I plus plus, that sort of thing. So the logic structure is the same, but what happens inside the parentheses here is very different. I'm going to say let li, and this is the loop variable, the variable that's going to get passed into the loop and used only for the lifespan of the loop. Let li of, and then what I want to do is do li's here. And I was forgetting that we need to actually grab that stuff with a document query selector all first. But you don't have to. You could put the document.query selector right in here, but it makes for kind of a messy code block. So let's go ahead and declare a variable first here. I will say let li's equals document.query selector all, li, like this. And so if I go over here and type in li's, there it is. There's my node list. And then what do I ask to do? Oh, just logging into the console, right? So that's easy peasy. So console.log li. So each time it iterates through this loop, it will take the li variable, which is grabbing that iteration of that node list or array or whatever it is I'm looping through, and in this case, spit it out to the console. So save and refresh, and there they are. And that brings us to the end of the week 2 Friday lab. That's it. It's just all this stuff, most of which, again, I've commented out. Maybe at the end, now that I've done typing everything, I'll go ahead and uncomment the other stuff. Like I said, either way is fine. But I'd probably uncomment it if the instructor asked for me to do that stuff and didn't ask me to uncomment it. Okay, so questions about any of that stuff? Everything seemed pretty straightforward? Okay, cool. Take that as a yes. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.